Welcome back to Echoes of the Eye. Today we're going to talk about layout. The biggest strength this game has is layout. It understands how to let the player deceive themselves into thinking that they have explored an area. And we're going to talk about that, especially the first village, today, because it's the number one most important takeaway. Very few games really understand how to let the player explore in a way that continues to unfold forever. Most of the time you explore a level and you're done. If there are secrets, they're intended to be discovered the first time you explore the level. This game's not like that. This game fills every single area with things that you're going to have to come back to in like big brain moments, and that is just great. Let's talk about how they do it. Let's start here. This is the main entrance, but it's not the first entrance. As we talked about in the last video, the first entrance is the almost identical entrance on the far side. When the player comes here, they probably don't even realize that this is a different entrance. They probably think this is the same entrance. There are some giveaways, but most players probably won't notice them. So they're not going to search very hard, which means that they're almost certainly not going to discover the secret elevator behind that wall. They'll think they've already figured out this area. They've already explored it, so they don't need to search it again. Similarly, when they come in here and they use this elevator and they come out here, they might be a little bit confused as to why they're coming out somewhere different, but chances are pretty high they're going to cope and just kind of forget about it rather than really think too hard about it. The actual answer is, of course, that we came out of a building just over there the first time, and we floated down a river that was just over there instead of this river here. You might be thinking that that is, a very small difference. It is not. It is a tremendous difference because from here, we can see this house. This house is blocked from view if you come from the other direction, and the reason for that is simple. This house is not something they want you to discover on your first time through. Their primary objective when you get here your first time is to make sure you understand what a slide machine is. They want you to hunger for slides, because slides are the number one way that you find out information. Well, in this house, spoilers, obviously, in this house, you're going to find the artifact. Now, if you found this artifact on your first time through, you would probably be distracted trying to figure out what the heck this artifact is. And you might not even realize that the slideshows have nothing to do with it. You might be desperately trying to figure out how to use this on the slides or something similar. They didn't want that. So that's why this exit leads you straight into an artifact house, whereas that entrance over there led you over there and you didn't even see this artifact house. They want you to uncover things in the right order. There's nothing preventing you from finding this artifact your first time through, but I would guess that less than 1% of the players do. I would guess that nearly every player who plays the game enters that slide house first, and that's simply a matter of what you can see at any given time. So, similarly, this main entrance leads us straight through to the tower. Now, the reason for that is pretty simple. We're going to be visiting this tower a lot, and it's the only tower that has a really strong time pressure. So we need to be able to grab an artifact and reach this tower in less than a minute. And that's why, when we come out of the entrance over there, we can immediately grab an artifact and then go straight to the tower, because they knew we were going to want to. But for your first visit, they don't want you to reach this tower and just think, oh, this is interesting. They don't want you to explore this tower the first time through because there's some secrets in this tower they'd prefer you don't find yet. So the first time through, you actually spawn in over there. You ride the raft down, and then the raft connects up and docks right there. See that glowy bit? That's where we start. You come down here across these walkways. You enter into this damaged building, which just has a picture of the Po2 in it, so you don't get overwhelmed. You understand immediately that there is, something cool going on, but you're not given anything worth getting. And then you come here, and you can see that this house is so much higher priority than the bridge. Bridges are naturally lower priority than a nearby house, and similarly, the tower, you can technically see it, but it's in the distance, and it's obscured by a bridge, so you're almost certainly going to come in here first. Which means that you're going to discover how slide machines work first, and you're not going to be distracted by thoughts like this. And when you do figure out how slide machines work, you'll realize that you need a light, and you'll see that there's lights over there, and so your next action will be to go over there and grab a light. And that is critical. You're not coming here thinking, oh, I'm going to explore this place. You're coming over here thinking, oh, I need a light. You are going to explore it, but this is about the level of exploration you're going to do. You're not going to really fuss with it because you have an objective. You need a light. So you're not going to really push hard to try and figure everything out because you know what you need, and there it is. You're just going to make sure that there's nothing obvious going on here. And there's not something obvious, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is a critical tower. You just don't know it yet. All of these things are brought about by the fact that they understand what you're going to see first, and they understand how you're going to be attracted to it, and they understand what kind of objectives you're going to have. For example, that building over there is much easier to reach if you're coming from the other direction. If you float from here down to there, you're naturally going to reach the slide projector building. But it's a much lower priority coming in from the main entrance, which is over there. The main entrance leads us to over here to the tower. Now the reason for that is because this building, there's no reason to ever come here again once you've seen the slideshows. At least, that's what they want you to think. That's the idea, right? You've already explored this building. You've already found everything that you needed to find in this building. There's nothing else here. Why would you ever need to come back here? So it's low priority. It's off in the distance. Nobody needs to, ever think about this building again. Oh, wait. There's a whole bunch of secret shit down here. The chances of you discovering this are extremely low. You might. It really depends on how aggressive you are in searching. There are 3 of these rooms, and I only found one of them on my own. The other 2 I had to get... there's a map room that points them out for you. But this is a disposal room, and exploring this room will give you some tips if you find it real early. There's a whole bunch of mechanics in here that you may not realize yet, and this is not a bad place to learn them. But you're certainly not going to find it on your first time through. You're probably not going to find it on your 50th time through. You're probably going to need to have it pointed out to you. And that's just because it's hidden, so you can't see it. See? You have to let me know how many of those rooms you found on your playthrough before having them pointed out to you in the map room. So this whole affair, all of this stuff that we're doing here, this is all done entirely by understanding where the player is starting from, where they're going to go, what they'll be able to see along the way. By adjusting what the player wants to do, you can adjust how carefully the player looks at various things. If the player came here first, they might very well discover that there are some tricks to this facility, just because they don't know of anything else they want to do. They might be like, well, I'm going to just play with all these lamps because I don't know what the lamps are for yet. And then they would discover right away that playing with the lamps is actually a critical factor. That's why they set it up the way they set it up. They set it up, this entire facility, this entire village, specifically to be explored from 2 different directions to give you 2 different priorities when you are exploring it. I think that's fantastic. The second village we'll talk about next episode, and then of course we'll talk about the 3rd and 4th villages after that. These are built to be explored in a specific order, and that specific order is this village first, because it's closest to the exit, and then this second village, because it's really, really obvious, and then the 4th village over here, and then the 3rd village. Now the reason for that is because this 3rd village is a little hard to reach visually. It's not something that you're naturally going to just discover. You're very likely, well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. The point here is that you're only likely to discover this village after you've discovered this area here. But it's not a guarantee. You might discover the 3rd village first. We'll talk about that in more detail later, because there are some things you can do to mitigate that kind of out-of-order exploration. As I've said many times, an open world is not something where you put stuff everywhere. An open world is a world where you guide the player to where there is stuff. And this game is a master class of understanding where the player is going to come from and what they're going to notice. And I think that that is just a phenomenal way to set up an adventure game. It's way better than a series of puzzles. Next episode, we'll talk a little bit more about the second village and maybe some of the other kinds of exploration that we're going to be doing.